Good evening. My name is John Wilson. Ed Martin, one of my associates, is with me this evening. We're coming to you again from our law office, the National Centennial House at 111 Market Street in Lockport, New York. Tonight I wanted to talk a little bit about how to handle yourself at either a DWI roadblock or even more basic than that, a routine police stop. Either situation is something that generally traumatizes most drivers, whether or not you consumed any alcohol, notwithstanding. Whenever we see red lights come on behind us, we immediately become anxious, and it's understandable because most usually the involvement of a police officer in our lives doesn't lead to a pleasant outcome. At minimum, it's a traffic ticket, or in some situations worse than that. I'm going to ask Ed for his thoughts just generally on how a motorist should conduct themselves when they're stopped by a police officer, and then we'll take it a bit further and get into some other aspects of police-citizen encounters. Ed, what are your thoughts?
Well, first and foremost, be polite. There's nothing at all to be gained from being rude, hostile, or discourteous to the officer. Next, comply with his demands. If he wants to see the license and the registration, do your best to produce the documentation that he or she wants, and help yourself to make the encounter go as smoothly as possible.
Let me ask you this, quite often we see in these cases where there'll be almost a mini interrogation that occurs at roadside. Even though the officer hasn't made any accusations, clearly no tickets have been written or issued, he'll nonetheless start questioning, and as we see so often, the questions will go something like, have you had anything to drink this evening? How much have you had to drink? Where were you drinking? Where are you headed to now? What advice would you have to motorists about how responsive they should be to questions of this nature?
Well, first and foremost, always remember you have a right to remain silent. That's a very important right. I think most people who are stopped, who haven't been stopped before, are nervous and they feel as if they're compelled to answer questions that might, in the end, hurt their position. So remember that you are not being forced to answer questions that you don't want to, and you do have a right to remain silent, knowing that if there are responses that might hurt you, they certainly will hurt you if and when you're arrested and have to appear in court to answer charges.
Oftentimes I think people labor under the misimpression that, well, if I'm honest with the police officer, it'll go better for me. He'll cut me a break. Would you agree with that?
Well, first of all, if you don't know you're getting a break, don't assume you will. And I don't know that it's necessarily a matter of honesty or dishonesty. It's a matter of limiting information that may ultimately be harmful for you if you're charged and have to appear in court to answer those charges.
Now let me just harken back to something you said at the outset, and that was kind of a fundamental rule of being courteous with the police officer. You can certainly still be courteous, can you not? And yet at the same time not give information which may be harmful to yourself.
That's absolutely correct. And also remember that you have the right to counsel. So early on in the process, it would certainly benefit you to mention that you have an attorney or you want to speak to an attorney, and remember our office number is 716-434-2010.
Something important also, and we'll leave you with this thought, is that you can still be pleasant with the officer. You can simply decline to answer a particular question. Obviously producing documentation, routinely he will ask for license, registration, proof of insurance. That is something you should comply with. But then if the questioning begins to narrow or focus on a particular subject such as, have you been drinking? At that point, I think a word to the wise, you can simply say, I decline to answer that question, or be silent. He may become a little bit upset because obviously he's hoping that you will be instrumental in making the case against yourself. But by maintaining your own level of confidence, your own courtesy, not getting upset, not becoming angry, and of course, never becoming physically combative with the officer, you'll keep control of the situation rather than allowing him to take control of that situation. With that, we'll leave you. Again, it's been nice chatting with you. We'll have many other topics in the future that we intend to cover. I want to remind you that this is attorney advertising, and that as such I'm obligated to tell you that past results are no guarantee of similar outcomes in future cases. I know that you all understand that, but I'm obligated to tell you that. All of you have a safe and pleasant holiday. Thank you.